Hello, and welcome to the final round of the 2021 Dwight National Shakespeare Competition. Here he is. Dwight has been a part of this competition since it first existed, back in 1975, created by Paul Beresford Hill, an English teacher who later became the headmaster of the Anglo-American School, which later merged with Dwight. In the 46 years since then, the competition has gone national, and now, every year across the United States, more than 25,000 students participate. Here at Dwight, our students in grades 9 through 12 begin with performances in their English classes as part of the preliminary rounds. Select students advance to the semifinal round, judged by the English department, and then a talented few advance to what you will see today, the final round. We have 11 students from across all 4 grades delivering compelling, passionate monologues as part of the competition today. And those monologues will be judged on a variety of criteria by 4 guest experts. Ms. Perot from the History Department. She studied drama in college and over the years has organized everything from community improv groups to spoken word competitions, even a hip-hop opera. We welcome her fresh perspective to the panel. We have the Timothy House music teacher, Ms. Zambetti, who spent years in youth theater as a singer and an actor. Since then, she has amassed quite literally dozens of performance credits, including at the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts. Her original music appears in commercials and movies. We welcome her stage expertise and her critical ear for voice to our panel today. We also have Mr. Dale. Yes, he's the head of high school, but before that, he was an English teacher here at Dwight for 8 years, and every one of those years, he taught Shakespeare. We thank him for returning to those roots in his role as a judge this year. Lastly, Mr. Christgau. He grew up in the theater, he has directed Dwight's productions for 2 decades, and he himself has acted in more than a dozen Shakespeare plays. His expertise is the anchor on our judging panel. Now that you know what the students are going to be judged on, let's get to those performances, and we begin with one of Shakespeare's most famous tragedies, Macbeth. The title character is a Scottish lord who encounters 3 witches that give him a prophecy. He will one day become the king. His wife, Lady Macbeth, one of Shakespeare's most brilliant and brutal women, just doesn't think that her husband has the ambition or the ability. She thinks he's too gentle to ever grab the throne for his own. She pushes him to agree to murder the current king so that he can fulfill that prophecy and take the crown for himself. In this early scene in the play, the king is visiting Macbeth at his castle, but Macbeth, in a fit of anxiety and fear, suddenly decides he cannot go through with his murderous plan, and he tells his wife, "The speech you're about to hear by Lady Macbeth is her response to that," along with a graphic description of the lengths that she would go to grab such royal power if it were available to her. As Lady Macbeth in this first monologue of the final round, we have 10th grader Lily Ventura.
Was thou drunk when you dressed yourself? Has it sleep since and woke now to look so green and pale at what it did so freely? From this time I such account thy love. Art thou afeard to be the same in thine own act and valour as thou art in desire? Then what beast was it then that made you break this enterprise to me? When you just do it then you were a man, and to be so much more of what you were, you would be so much more the man. Nor time nor place did then adhere, and yet you made both. They have made themselves, and that their fitness now does unmake you. I have given suck, and know how tender 'tis love the babe that milks me. I would, whilst it's smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from its boneless gums and dashed the brains out had I so sworn as you have done to this.
Well, that speech worked. Macbeth went through with it. He killed the king, and for this next monologue, we move to the end of the play. Macbeth has continued his killing ways. He hired assassins to kill his friend Banquo. He sent soldiers to kill the family of the Thane of Fife. And now we revisit Lady Macbeth. But now she's deteriorating. She's racked with sorrow and the horror of those that have died as a result of her actions. In this scene, she's suffering a nightmare of guilt, symbolized by blood on her hands. For this performance, we turn to 10th grader Mika Quell.
Yet, here's a spot. Out, down the spot, out, I say. One, two. Why then, 'tis time to do it. Hell is murky. Fie, my lord, fie. A soldier and a fear? What need we fear? Who knows it? When none can call our power to account. Yet, who would have thought the old man would have so much blood in him? The Thane of Fife had a wife. Where is he now? What, will these hands ne'er be clean? No more of that, my lord. No more of that. You mar all with this starting. Here's the smell of blood still. Oh, the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. Oh, oh, oh. Wash your hands, put on your nightgown. Look not so pale. I tell you yet again, Banquo's buried. He cannot come out one's grave. To bed, to bed. There's not king at the gate. Come, 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 come. Give me your hand. What is done cannot be undone. To bed, to bed, to bed.
We move now from a murderous king to a powerless one. In Shakespeare's King Lear. The king is old. He wants to step down from the throne and give away his power to whichever of his 3 daughters best shows their love for him. Of course, he badly misjudges their affirmations of affection and gives his power in part to his daughter Goneril. She actually, no surprise I suppose, does not genuinely love him. She is instead harsh and cunning. In this scene, Lear visits Goneril in her palace, expecting a warm and loving welcome, and instead he gets this speech from her, in which Goneril disparages the 100 knights and squires that traditionally attend her father. She insults them, saying how they dishonor her home, and she demands that her father send most of them away, keeping only the ones that are as old as he is. For this performance, for Goneril's speech, we turn to ninth grader Eduarda Kowarski-Rota.
And this admiration, sir, is much of the savor of your other new pranks. I do beseech you to understand my purposes are right. As you are old and reverend, you should be wise. Here do you keep 100 knights and squires, men so disordered, so debauched and bold, that this our court, infected with their manners, shows like a riotous inn. And Epicurism and lust makes it more like a tavern, or a brothel, than a graced palace. The shame itself thou speak for instant remedy. Be then desired by her that will else take the thing she begs, a little to disquantity your train, and the remainders that shall still depend to be such men as may besort your age, which know themselves. And you?
We escape from tragedy for a moment and move instead into comedy, Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, a play overflowing with disguised identities, misdirected intentions, and, of course, many, many foolish actions by people in love. In this scene, we meet Malvolio. He's a servant of a countess who he loves and who he believes loves him. He believes this because of a letter he received that he thought was from the countess, but actually is from another of her servants who is simply trying to make a fool of Malvolio. But that letter instructed him to act in front of the countess in bizarre and offensive ways, and in this scene, he has just done so. The countess has left, clearly confused, and she asks her uncle, Sir Toby, to look after Malvolio. And in this speech you're about to hear, he reflects on his behavior, thinks that he's done very well, and thinks the countess is in love with him. For this performance as Malvolio, we turn to ninth grader Guy Sequeira.
Oh, do you come near me now? No worse man than Sir Toby to look to me. This goes directly with the letter. She sends him on purpose that I may appear stubborn to him. For she incites me to that in the letter, cast thy humble slough, says she. Be opposite to the kinsman, surly with servants. Let thy tongue tang with arguments of state. Put thyself into the trick of singularity, and consequently sets down the manner how, as a sad face, a reverent carriage, a slow tongue, in the habit of some sir of note and so forth. I have limed her, but it is Jove's doing, and Jove makes me thankful. And when she went away now, let this fellow be looked to. Fellow, not Malvolio, nor after my degree, but fellow. Why, everything adheres together. That no dram of a scruple, no scruple of a scruple, no obstacle, no incredulous or unsafe circumstance. What can be said? Nothing that can come between me and the full prospect of my hopes. Well, Jove, not I, is the doer of this, and he is to be thanked.
We're now back to tragedy, in this case, to war, with Shakespeare's Coriolanus. The title character is a brave Roman soldier, and here, early in the play, he has just defeated a long-standing enemy. There in the battlefield, still bloody from combat, he receives praise from one of his superiors. And as some of the other men chant his name, at this point he's still known as Martius. He refuses to participate in taking the spoils of victory, and he repeatedly declines the honor showered upon him for his bravery and his skill in fighting. Instead, he says that he simply did what any Roman soldier would do, and that anything else are mere exaggerations. It's a heroic moment for him. Little does he know that his heroism ends here. He will soon transition to politics, where ambition and bias will lead to his downfall. But here, for Martius's moment of honorably deflecting this praise there in the middle of the battlefield, we turn to ninth grader Santiago Sanchez Lara Alonso.
I thank you, General, but cannot make my heart consent to take a bribe to pay my sword. I do refuse it, and stand upon my common part with those that have beheld the doing. May these same instruments which you profane never sound more. When drums and trumpets shout on the field prove flatterers, let courts and cities be made all a false face soothing. When steel grows as soft as the parasite silk, let him be made an ovator for the wars. No more, I say, for I have not washed my nose, which is bled, or foiled some to vile wretch, which here's many else have done. You shout me forth in acclamations hyperbolical, as if I loved my little should be dieted in phrases sauced with lies. I will go wash. When my face is fair, you shall perceive whether I blush or no.
Now we turn to Shakespeare's most famous tragedy, Hamlet. The title character learns that his father, the king, had been secretly murdered by his own brother, Hamlet's uncle, who has now taken over the throne. Hamlet sees his father's ghost and learns from him that his death was so sudden and unexpected that his father never had the chance to repent for his sins. His spirit now wanders the netherworld, unable to get into heaven. Here in this scene, Hamlet comes upon his uncle, the king, who happens to be on his knees in prayer. Hamlet comes up behind him and draws his sword. And in this speech, he debates whether or not this moment when his uncle, his murderous uncle, happens to be praying is the most opportune time to exact vengeance for the death of his father. Here, as Hamlet, is 10th grader Ava Kimmel.
Now might I do it pat? Now he is a-praying, and now I'll do it. And so he goes to heaven, and so am I revenged. That would be scanned. A villain kills my father, and for that, I, his sole son, do this same villain send to heaven. Why? This is higher in salary, not revenge. Up sword and know thou a more horrid hent. When he is drunk asleep, or in his rage, or in the incestuous pleasure of his bed. At game, a swearing, or about some act that has no relish of salvation in it. And trip him, that his heels may kick at heaven, and that his soul may be as damned and black as hell where to it goes. My mother stays. This physic but prolongs thy sickly days.
We now go back for a moment to Lady Macbeth, there at the end of the play, racked with guilt and horror, staring at the damned spots of blood on her hands. For a different interpretation of this famous speech, this nearly terrified and insane woman, we turn to 10th grader Adam Armstrong.
Yeah, here's the spot. Out! Damn spot. Out, I say. 1, 2. Why then? Just time to do it. Hell is murky. Fine, my lord. Fine. A soldier and a fear What need we fear who knows it when none can call our power to account? Yet who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him? But then if I've had a wife, where is she now? What? Will these hands ne'er be clean? No more of that, my lord, no more of that. You mar all with this starting. Here's the smell of the blood still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. Oh. 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 Wash your hands. Put on your nightgown. Look not so pale. I tell you yet again, Banquo is buried. He cannot come out on his grave. To bed. To bed. There's knocking at the gate. Come. 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 Give me your hand. What's done cannot be undone. To bed. To bed. To bed.
Far away from Macbeth's Scotland, we now move to the remote island in Shakespeare's The Tempest, and we meet Prospero and his daughter Miranda. Prospero used to be the Duke of Milan, but he was cast out and set adrift on the open sea with his daughter Miranda. That was 12 years ago. Since then, they've been stranded on this island. Now the play begins with a new shipwreck and survivors landing on the island, including Prince Ferdinand. In this scene, Ferdinand meets Miranda, and of course, the two of them fall in love. Miranda, in the speech you're about to hear, expresses her feelings, but they're somewhat complicated by not only her timidity, but the fact that other than her father, Ferdinand is the only man she has ever seen in her entire life. That, of course, doesn't prevent her from asking to be his wife. As Miranda in this scene, we have 11th grader Leia Emanuel.
I do not know one of my sex. No woman's face remember, save from my glass mine own. Nor have I seen more that I may call men than you, good friend, and my dear father. How features are abroad I am skilless of, but by my modesty, the jewel in my dower, I would not wish any companion in the world but you, nor can imagination form a shape besides yourself to like of. But I prattle something too wildly in my father's precepts, I dare and do forget. I am a fool to weep at what I am glad of. But this is trifling, and all the more it seeks to hide itself, the bigger bulk it shows. Hence, bashful cunning and prompt me plain and holy innocence. I am your wife if you will marry me. If not, I'll die your maid. To be your fellow you may deny me, but I'll be your servant whether you will or no.
Now to perhaps the most legal of all of Shakespeare's plays, The Merchant of Venice. Here, a Jewish moneylender named Shylock agrees to lend to a businessman, but only if the man agrees that if he cannot pay back the debt, Shylock can take a pound of his flesh. In this scene, it's the trial, because of course, the business venture failed and the debt became due, and Shylock wants his pound of flesh. In steps Portia, one of Shakespeare's most intelligent characters. She disguises herself as a law clerk and then makes an argument in this speech to Shylock that he should forgive the debt and in so doing demonstrate the most divine of all qualities, mercy. Here, as Portia, is 11th grader Carolina Bueno Silva Arap.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath it. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives, and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest, it becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His scepter shows the force of temporal power, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above this sceptred sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself. And earthly power doth then show likest gods, when mercy seasons justice. Therefore, Jew, though justice be thy plea, consider this, that in the course of justice none of us shall see salvation. We do pray for mercy, and that same prayer doth then teach us all to render the deeds of mercy.
From debts of money, we turn to debts of love in the most famous romance of all time, Romeo and Juliet. In this play about star-crossed lovers, Romeo has just learned that after killing Juliet's cousin in a sword fight, he has been banished forever from his home in Verona. Here in this speech, he proclaims his anguish to the friar, explaining that banishment is actually a punishment worse than death because he's condemned to live, but without his love, Juliet. Here as Romeo, 11th grader Bernardo Sequeira.
Tis torture and not mercy. Heaven is here where Juliet lives, and every cat and dog and little mouse, every unworthy thing, live here in heaven and may look on her. But Romeo may not. More validity, more honorable state, more courtship lives in carrion flies than Romeo. They may seize on the white wonder of dear Juliet's hand, and steal immortal blessings from her lips, who even in pure and vestal modesty still blush, as thinking their own kisses sin. But Romeo may not. He is banished. Flies may do this, but I from this must fly. They are free men, but I am banished. And sayst thou yet that exile is not death? Hadst thou no poison mixed, no sharp ground knife, no sudden mean of death, though ne'er so mean, but banished to kill me, banished? Oh, friar, the damned use that word in hell.
And now, for the final performance of the competition, we return to Lady Macbeth wringing her hands in her guilt-ridden nightmare. And for that performance, we turn to the only 12th grade finalist in this year's competition. Here, delivering her final Shakespeare monologue at Dwight, Ava Goldfarb.
Yet here's a spot. Out, damn spot, out, I say. 1, 2. Why then, 'tis time to do it. Hell is murky. Fie, my lord, fie, a soldier and a feared. What need we fear, who knows it, when none could call our power to account? Who would have thought the old man to have so much blood in him? The Thane of Fife had a wife. Where is she now? What will these hands never be clean? No more of that, my lord, no more of that. You mar all with this starting. Here's the smell of blood, still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. Oh! 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 Wash your hands. Put on your nightgown. Look not so pale. I tell you that again, Bank was buried. He cannot come out of one's grave. To bed, there's knocking at the gate. Come, 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 come. Give me your hand. What is done cannot be undone. To bed, to bed, to bed.
We've reached the end of the competition. I need to thank the 4 guest judges, Ms. Perot, Ms. Zambetti, Mr. Dale, and Mr. Kriskow, for lending their time and their expertise. I also need to thank Ms. Gazowski, Dwight's drama teacher, who spent dozens of hours organizing and conducting one-on-one practices with these finalists so they could hone these beautiful performances today. Lastly, I'd like to thank every member of our English department here in the high school who shepherded all of these students through the preliminary rounds and judged the semifinal round. We'll be announcing the winners next week. We'll make sure to send those announcements to every member of the Dwight community. Until then, everyone, thank you for your time and best wishes.